Welcome back, Hobby and Development fans. In this video, we're going to be painting the child from the Mandalorian TV series. If you like this video and you want to see more content, please feel free to like, share, and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy the video. So this model is a 3D print. I'll leave the link in the description to the Thanksgivers file below. And the first thing we're going to do is clean up the residue left on the model from the printing process. Use clippers and some files to get that done, and then we'll get into the painting process. I'm going to be using Vallejo Surface Primer to lay down the undercoat on this model. I really do like Vallejo Surface Primer. It sticks to resin, plastic, metal, you name it, and it's easy to use in an airbrush, and it sticks, does not come off, and the paint that I apply over top sticks to that pretty well. And I'm applying it using a Sotar 2020 airbrush, and you need to pass by a couple of coats, build up a nice good layer. The advantage to having a purple underneath is you're sure to get a good base coat down, because the purple shows right through if you don't. So get yourself a nice base coat down, and then we'll move on to painting the rest of the model. So I'm going to be using Death World Forest. I'm going to be putting it through the airbrush, thinned with some thinner and some water, and this is going to be the base coat for the skin on the child. Again, you have to make sure that you thin it a little extra shooting it through the Sotar, because the Sotar does have a thinner needle. You could technically also apply this with a regular brush. With the base coat done, we're going to be using Caliban Green, and we're going to shoot a little bit in the shadows and give it a little bit of color variation and darken it up. With the shadows complete, Nurgling Green is going to be our first of our highlight layers shot through the airbrush, and our light is coming from the left top part of the model, so that's where we're going to be focusing our highlights using the airbrush. And the same thing, but this time using Elysian green in smaller sections, building up those highlights from the left to the right.
Close to me, baby, don't let go of me. Maybe you're gonna be
Do just want to throw it out there that this took me about 8 hours to complete, so I am on 400% speed to get this to go relatively quickly, so you're not watching 8 hours of video. We're going to use a bed and black to darken in the eyes.
Maybe you're gonna be the one. Maybe you're gonna be the one.
And then we're going to be taking Pallid Witch Flesh, and we're going to be laying down an undercoat layer in the ears to give the ears that semi-transparent look of light shining through them.
Take me. Maybe you're gonna be the one to take me. Maybe you're gonna be the one.
I got a little sidetracked with the ears, and I decided to go back and use the shades to the rest of the skin. So Athonian Camo Shade first in a recess shade of all of the facial features. Darken them down, give them a little bit more definition. Be going in the wrinkles on top of the head and above the eyes and a couple of other little places here and there. I use water before I put down the shade, and it helps avoid the coffee stain effect that you might get if the shade dries a little too quickly. So that's one of the methods that you can use to prevent that from happening, is you just apply a little bit of water and then you apply the shade to the water and you can move it around.
Maybe you're gonna be the one to
We'll be switching to Coleoid Green shade to add another touch of color to the skin. We'll be going underneath the eyes, underneath the chin, and again with water, then a little bit of shade, and then feather it out, and it'll give a little bit of color variation into the shadows.
Maybe you're gonna be the one to take me home.
Now we're going to be adding Reikland Flesh Shade over the Pallid Witch Flesh in the ears, and you're going to want to slowly build this up, thin with water, until you get the effect that you're looking for. And you're going to want to soak up any of the areas that might pool, because we're all trying to darken that, we're just trying to tint it.
The starlit sky lit up your eyes. I could barely breathe no matter how I tried. I held you close just to keep you warm. Then like Jean would do, I walked you to your door. I still wonder when it all ran dry. Will it last a little longer? Do you remember when we were much better? I wish we could.
And then I'm going to add a little bit of red with Carabao Crimson over top of the flesh shade, and then work back and forth between the two until you're happy with the results.
Singing in the rain. That knee-high dress. Oh, you
Next, we're going to be adding some reflections to the eyes using White Scar.
electric nights, just me kiss me on my lips, just like Depp would do.
Then used a little bit of thinned Corvus Black to tint down some of the white highlights to make them not so bright. And then we're going to be moving on to Elysian Green, and we're going to use that as an edge highlight over the most raised details on the model.
We won't fight, we'll be swinging from street lights. I wish we could go back to when we went singing in the rain.
Now that the eyes have dried, we're going to use a gloss coat to give it a more realistic look over top of all of the black and the white. Now we're going to move on to the cloak, and we're going to be using Gorthor Brown applied with a brush. You could technically do this with an airbrush, I chose not to. Give it a nice, good 2 thin coats, and then after we're done, you're going to be wet blending using Beyblade Brown, Gorthor Brown, and Karak Stone. And you're going to wet blend on all of the raised details using the Gorthor Brown as your base and blend it nice. And you're basically looking to create what it would look like if light were hitting the tops of the fabric, and you make it nice and natural. Basically watch the video, and this is how you do it. It's important that you keep everything wet. Don't leave it a lot of time to dry when you're wet blending. You can use water and a wet palette like I'm doing, and then you just feather it all in and you make it blend. To highlight this section, we're going to be using a dry brush and using Karak Stone, and that'll catch all those little raised edges and it'll make that pop. Then I'm using Corvus Black for all of the fingernails. This process definitely takes the longest, and you could do it other ways, but you'd be sacrificing quality for getting it done quicker. That being said, finishing it up, and we're done with the model. I hope you enjoyed, and if you want to print your own, again, I'll leave the link to the file below. And I chopped the base off of the model that you'll find in the link below. I had a friend print it out. If you don't have a 3D printer, I'm sure there's a lot of services that will be able to print it out for you online. And I hope you enjoyed the video. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to receive notifications when I upload new content.